My mom and dad and I were very close. We did a lot of family things, like we used to, well, when we were kids, used to go for Sunday drives. I don't know if people do that anymore. And picnics, Lake Ontario Park. And then we had big Christmases at my grandmother, my mother's mother. 35 people all sat down to Christmas dinner. Everybody brought something. But we were very, very close family. So I do miss them. I mean, they were strict parents, but still, they were good parents.
Love, one of life's great joys. But does a relationship end when a loved one dies? Or could the bond of love continue into the afterlife? Hello, I'm Lawrence Chow. Today in Ghostly Encounters, we meet Jen and Maria. Both tell us about being surrounded by a loving family in life and in death. One night, over family dinner in Kingston, Ontario, Jen Potvin and her family make an unusual pact, a pact that will eventually give Jen a glimpse into the afterlife.
I've always been intrigued by the unknown, and my mom and dad would listen to me, and they weren't negative about it. They were just would listen, So it was good that I could talk to somebody about it. So one evening, we were sitting at the kitchen table, and I just said, "Let's make a family pact, Mom and Dad." And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "Whoever goes first, whoever dies first, come back and tell us, where do you go? What is it like?" And they said, "Fine, that sounds really good. Yes, we will do that. If we are able to do that, we will do that." And I said, "Okay, don't forget." And they agreed. My dad died May 23rd, 1997. He one heart attack. He never had heart problems in his life. After my dad died, he was a very noisy spirit. Day one, he was banging around in the kitchen. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I would hear these pots banging and thumping, like on the table, on the counter, on the stove. I get up and I go out in the kitchen, and it stopped. It had to be Dad, yeah, because there was never any noise in this house till he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but after he died, there was that racket in that kitchen. And then during the day, I wouldn't hear anything more, but it was mainly in the morning I heard all this racket. I never heard his voice. I never saw him out there. He didn't cook or anything. Why he was banging all those pots around, I don't know. I think it was just his way of letting us know, I'm still here. And then I would hear the door going down into the basement, clicking open a little bit. I'd be on my computer. I was just signed on and was just clicking away, and you go down, and then you come back up. It wouldn't be very long. It would be about maybe 5-10 minutes, and I hear it click and close. Now, occasionally I have seen my dad. I'll be on my computer, and I happen to just look up in the corner of my eye, and I see him walking. After my dad died, I'd be on my computer, and I just happened to look up and saw him. He was just in his casual dark pants and a shirt, and just walking towards the chair. You know, he always walked kind of slumped over. Didn't say anything. He didn't look at me. I just said, oh, there's Dad. And he was walking towards the chair he always sat in to watch TV. But then he would just disappear. He never really got to sit down. It didn't frighten me. He never frightened me as my father. I didn't, you know, like maybe it was somebody I didn't know. It would be scary, but it didn't, you know, it was my dad. And I knew he was dead. So I thought, oh, he's still here. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and her life deteriorated to a point where she just mainly stayed in bed and slept, you know, her life away. And then maybe 3 or 4 days before she passed away, I was getting ready for bed. I came out in the kitchen. There's my father sitting at the kitchen table where he always sat, just sitting there, looking normally like my dad always looked. Then I said, what are you doing, Dad? And he looked at me, and he said, I'm waiting for your mother. And then, standing right beside my dad, was my mother in her nightgown, wringing her hands and looking very worried. And she wasn't dead, but she was standing there. And then her sister, Marguerite, who had passed away a number of years ago. And Marguerite was in her dress that she was buried in. She still looked the same. She hadn't aged anything. She hadn't changed at all. And I said, okay, well, everybody wants to know what happens when you die. And my dad didn't say it. My mother didn't say it, because we had that pact and they were supposed to tell. And my aunt said, somebody will meet you and stay with you forever. And then, poof, gone. All 3 of them instantly. And then 3 days later, my mother passed away. And I think my dad knew she was close to death. He was waiting for her, and whatever they're doing, they're together and happy, I am sure. I was glad to see my dad. It made it a lot easier for me knowing that my dad is waiting for my mother, his wife, and she wanted to go and be with him because she wasn't happy anymore. She did not have much of a life. She missed him, he missed her. They wanted to be together. But I was still curious, and that's why I asked. And the answer I got, well, it helped, you know. So I thought, oh, good. I'm glad. Somebody's going to meet us. They'll guide us. Maybe my mom and dad. I don't know. We don't know till we go.
Jen says she saw her parents together again, though her mom had not yet died. Our expert Patty Allen says there is the belief that this can happen with gravely ill people as their spirit spends less time with the physical body. Maria Thompson of Ottawa, Ontario, had many special moments with her husband, but she never thought that some of their most memorable would occur after his death.
I met my husband in October of 1974 when I went to apply for a position at the Bank of Montreal in Grand Bend. There was a lady that was going on a maternity leave, so I went in to apply for the position. I was hired for 4 months, and the joke became that he hired me for 4 months and took me on for life. And we were married for 24 and a half years before he passed away. We had a very fun-loving marriage. We cared for each other. I mean, it's not that we didn't have our little spats and misunderstandings, but we never went to bed angry at each other. We always made up. So it was just a very nice, loving, friendly companionship marriage. He was my best friend. He was my soulmate and my very, very best friend. Every year, Gary would go off with what I call his golfing buddies for a weekend. So I remember he got in the car and I looked in the back seat. I didn't see him per se. What I saw was a little lost boy. Every year, Gary would go off with what I call his golfing buddies for a weekend. When he was leaving on this Sunday, it was really weird because there was a feeling that I had that, you know, I have to count the minutes that I still have with him. And I remember standing there waiting and I said to him, you know, so give me a hug. It was such a strong, deep hug that I could almost feel my bones cracking. And when it was over with, I looked at him and I said, whoa, wow. I said, you know, you can give me this kind of hug anytime, any place. I'll take it. So I remember he got in the car and I looked in the back seat. I saw a little lost boy. That's the only way I can explain it. It wasn't my husband that I was seeing. It was a little boy, maybe the age of 6 or 7. He was just a tiny little person in the back seat, and I so wanted to just take that person in my arms and just say, you know, it's okay. If you don't want to go with them, you can stay with me. But I thought, you know, no, you're being very fanciful. But then the car drove off, and because it lasted such a short, like only about 30 seconds or so, I really thought, I'm seeing things. So they went off, and I spent the weekend cleaning the house, painting the bedroom, and just getting everything in order. I just felt like I had to have everything ready for his return. And then on Tuesday, when he was supposed to be coming home, my friend came to be with me to tell me that she needed to tell me something, and to tell me that Gary had passed away. Well, everything just stopped. That was, you know, that was the end. So the hospital called me 15 minutes later to tell me that he had had an aneurysm go through his heart. They tried, but they just couldn't save him. The funeral was Saturday. It was really a hard day because I don't like funerals. I've never liked funerals. I've been to a few before then, but I just found them very hard. But I remember sitting beside my youngest daughter, Amelia, and listening to them do the scriptures. And when they were reading the Corinthians 13, you know, love is kind, love is patient, love is not selfish, and that. When they got to the part that said, and love never dies, there was a spirit that I felt behind me, like an aura. It was blue. It was in the same shape as the physical body of my husband. And he stood behind me, and at that moment there was this urgency that came upon me that I had to get up. I needed to say something. You have to understand that up to this minute, I am just crying. I mean, I'm almost shaking with the way I'm crying. But as soon as I felt that aura, the crying stopped. I don't remember everything that I said, but I do remember saying that Gary would like me to thank, everybody that's there. sorry, for their kindness, for supporting his family. So on his behalf, I would like to thank everybody for coming and being there for us. I remember saying that, you know, Gary touched the lives of a lot of people, and I would always remember him for being the kind of person that he was, the kind, considerate, always thinking about, you know, other people, thinking of his family before he thought about himself. But when the funeral was over with, like, as soon as I had said what I had to say, the aura, the spiritual being, was gone. While I was up there, I knew that I had the strength to say what I had to say. And so there was like a calmness about me, because people afterwards told me that my voice never broke. And it was, like I say, it was like an urgency touch. It was like he came to me out of the urgency to make sure that everybody there knew that he appreciated all the support and sympathy that they had given him, you know, the family. But that was the first time, and I think it was his way also to tell me that, you know what, I'm still here. My body's there, but I'm still here. I remember a week or so after he passed away, I had gone to bed, and I was going to bed sort of early-ish, because I found if I slept, the pain wouldn't be there. So I remember going to bed and then all of a sudden feeling somebody beside my bed, but I honestly thought that it was my youngest daughter, but it was my husband that I saw. I remember a week or so after Gary passed away, I had gone to bed, and I was going to bed sort of early-ish, because I found if I slept, the pain wouldn't be there. All of a sudden, I felt, you know how sometimes when you're sleeping, somebody comes into the room and you can feel them without even opening your eyes, you can feel them. That's what I felt. I felt like there was somebody beside my bed, but I honestly thought that it was my youngest daughter. So I was all prepared when I opened my eyes to say to her, you know, yes, sunshine, just come beside me. But it wasn't my daughter, it was my husband. And he stood there and he bent over and he took me in his arms and he gave me a kiss. And people have often said to me that, you know, you were probably dreaming this. But this was a very deep, hard kiss on my lips that I could really feel it. It was a kiss that he would have given me, the type that he would give me when he was alive. And he just said to me he was sorry that he had to leave, but it was his time. He had accomplished what he came on earth to accomplish, but that he loved me. He would always love me. He would always love the girls. He told me to make sure that I don't let them forget him, and told me that although he wasn't there physically, he would always be with me. I told him that I really didn't like him leaving, but I understood that if it was his time, that I had to let him go. When it was time for him to go, he said goodbye to me and said, you know what, go back to sleep now, everything will be all right. And then he was gone. I was at peace. I went back to sleep, and I think for the first time after he passed away, I actually had a good night's sleep. It was the most amazing and awesome feeling. It was just like as if though he was still there with me. It was almost like old times for a couple minutes. But I truthfully, honestly believe that he is with me every day. And whatever I experience, I know that he's there experiencing my happiness, my sadness, my trials, my errors, and whatever I go through, I truly believe that he's with me.
Maria tells us her husband gives her strength when she needs it most. Our experts say some believe the relationship works both ways. The ghost is strengthened by the love of the living. Perhaps Maria's love helped her husband project his aura at his funeral and fully materialize in her bedroom. Maria and Jen believe they were reunited with loved ones from beyond the grave. Even though they may not encounter them every day, they are both comforted in knowing that they are never alone.
It's very comforting for me to know that, yeah, they're waiting, you know, and when my time comes, they'll all be there, and it'll be so nice to see them again and be with them again, because we were a big family and a very happy family and a very close family.
I truly believe that a spirit exists when somebody passes on. Their spirit exists on a different level, but they do come, and if you just open your mind, open your heart to that possibility, they will be there for you.
For more ghostly encounters, go to myviva.ca/ghostly encounters. Love, one of life's great joys. But does a relationship end when a loved one dies? Or could the bond of love continue into the afterlife? Hello, I'm Lawrence Chow. Today in Ghostly Encounters, we meet Jen and Maria. Both tell us about being surrounded by a loving family in life and in death. One night, over family dinner in Kingston, Ontario, Jen Potvin and her family make an unusual pact, a pact that will eventually give Jen a glimpse into the afterlife.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, I would hear these pots banging and thumping, like on the table, on the counter, on the stove. I get up and I go out in the kitchen, and it stopped. It had to be Dad, yeah, because there was never any noise in this house till he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. But after he died, there was that racket in that kitchen. I've always been intrigued by the unknown, and my mom and dad would listen to me, and they weren't negative about it. They were just would listen, you know. So it was good that I could talk to somebody about it. So one evening, we were sitting at the kitchen table, and I just said, "Let's make a family pact, Mom and Dad." And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "Whoever goes first, whoever dies first, come back and tell us, where do you go? What is it like?" And they said, "Fine, that sounds really good. Yes, we will do that. If we are able to do that, we will do that." And I said, "Okay, don't forget." And they agreed. My dad died May 23rd, 1997. You know, he one heart attack. He never had heart problems in his life. After my dad died, he was a very noisy spirit. Day one, he was banging around in the kitchen. My mom and dad and I were very close. We did a lot of family things, like we used to, well, when we were kids, we used to go for Sunday drives. I don't know if people do that anymore. And picnics, Lake Ontario Park. And then we had big Christmases at my mother's mother. 35 people all sat down to Christmas dinner. Everybody brought something. But we were very, very close family. So I do miss them. I mean, they were strict parents, you know, but still, they were good parents.